Hey everybody, what up? It's Scuff D here, and just wrapped up round 5 of Lodge Wars Season 2 Electric Boogaloo, and pretty tight games. So we're gonna go ahead and go back and do the replay and kind of go through each of the games. We'll do a little bit of talking about it, talking about the decks, talking about some of the good plays and the bad plays. So let's get into it. So, again, going over the Lodge Wars here. My two warlords going into the event or going into the tournament is Fulgrim and Alpharius. These are the two warlords that I was rocking, and I opened up the game or the pairing with Fulgrim. My opponent's two warlords this round were going to be, oh, that's nice, Ferrus Manus and Corax. And both of those are hard matchups for Alpha Legion in general. Corax is not as much, but Ferrus Manus and Iron Hands in general, if they can get steamrolling, especially if they've got the double servo harnesses going, that's very hard to get around as an Alpha Legion player. So I pinned some matches. We're going to take a look. I ended up taking it 2-1. But we'll go through here. My opponent was Nathan from the 3rd Legion. Now let's hope that they've fixed... No. Dang it. I don't know if we're going to be able to see this video then. As we mentioned, they've had some issues, and I've reported it, and they're looking into it, and hopefully they're working on it. There seems to be some issues with the replays, and especially replays that are older. I mean, this isn't too old. That game is only 3 days old. I've played some event games since then. It's gone out past, but I'm going to try it one more time, and if not, we're just going to have to show game 2 and 3. But it seems like the longer they're out there, or if they're event related, those replays aren't loading for some reason. Nope, that's not doing it for me. Oh, that sucks. Well, it was a good game. It was a good game. I'll try to summarize it. Besides the loss, he got some stuff out. I was able to capitalize and clear out the board early on, prevent him from buffing things up, and I came out, felt like there was a tide turn when I had an Unbreakable Focus, had 3 units on the board, and they all got buffed, 2 or 3, I think it was 3, all got buffed pretty good. I had a 5/5 stealth, I had a Odovacar, and he was buffed up as well, and I had 1 card in hand, and he ended up having, through the nature of just the way that the Iron Hands play, he had 2 Winnow the Weeks in his hand, cleared my board out, and then just proceeded to be able to drop troops, and I did not have anything to respond with quickly enough. And when you're in a position with perfection, especially, and you're drawing, a 2-drop or 3-drop troop that triggers on perfection, and you're at 10 energy and you've only got 1 card, you're not going to get that perfection boost, and that's what was running into it. So it went from a very close game. I think we ended up within, I want to say 3 to 5 health. It was very, very low, very close game, and he just was able to clear the board with those 2 Win of the Weeks, which I figured he might have 1 of. It really hurt that he had both of them, but he ended up taking that game. So that led us to game 2. In game 2, then, I knew, because he was the victor, all he has to do in the series is win with his second warlord, which was Corax. So I decided to go for Alpharius in the event that A, mix it up, B, I got enough stun that I might be able to make something work with it. And I'll show you, I believe this is the deck that I went with. Yes. The only thing that I really included in here to go with it, because I knew that I was going up against Corax, I made sure that I had 2 informant networks in this deck. And then I also was considering, Oh no, this is Exodus. I'm like, Teloth Changers. This doesn't even look like anything I would play. I played it a couple times for fun, but geez, no, my friends. That is not it. That is not the deck. There we go. So I had two times Informant Networks, and I cut down on the heroine because this deck was a little bit heavier. I had Camarilla Squad I added in there just in the event for a beefy stun, as well as something that could survive a Scimitar Land Speeder coming at it, and still force him to throw more than one card out there. I also dropped an Orbital Base. In general, I might do that. I like the Orbital Base Pale Spear combo. A lot of people rant and rave about it. It's a good combo, but it's a one of. It's not something to build around, and it's hard to build two cards around a legendary. In too many games I've come across where I've had two Orbital Base in hand, no Pale Spear, and that's almost as good as having two dead cards in hand. I mean, you can Orbital Base and cycle your stuff, but that's not what you want to use them for if you can help it. I also included a Crack Grenade in here to just add some options. Add some options for some direct damage. Responding to kind of plug in the holes that I had. So with that said, let's see if we can view this game without any issues. I'm liking the replay feature when it works. Okay, so this is my opening hand out here. It was looking good. We got two stun options. I've got Saboteur Squad. It was going to be a tight game. It was going to be a close game. And so the one thing here, and I'll talk about this even more so when we get into game 3, because this did go to game 3. I was interested to see this. I wasn't sure if I would be able to put it to use when I got the Celt Squad. And, early on to get that sentence out there, you're like, okay, this is going to be rough. I could start taking damage really quick here. Celt Squad is a nice card that you don't see a lot of in the Raven Guard, because they're a little bit more expensive, but that constant ability, adjacent units +1, is pretty nice. They kind of work better than Firewalkers to that degree, plus they've got a beefy health, beefy attack. But the trade-off is, of course, that that cost. And Raven Guard, especially with the changes that they've done to Moors, to Cades, it really makes every bit of energy count. So I opted to put down the Ghost Legionary instead of stunning, because as soon as you can play those guys, the better. You've got to drop him from being able to play a 5, or have him, at turn 6, turn 7. If you've held off on the Ghost Legionary, you're giving him the option to play cards. At this point, I was going to have to eat the 4. I'm probably going to have to eat some sentence damaged here, but I trade off that long-term effect that the Pale Spears is going to give me, especially considering the fact that I know I've got Lactitio and I've got a one of many. And then I'm going to take a little bit more here. He opted to go there instead of, and I don't know what he had in his hand, instead of adding the sentence damage on there, which worked out for me because then I could play Lactitio, and I believe I follow up here with the Thunderhawk, because I would want to, but I might not. Yep. So there you go. Go with the second Saboteur. Eat the extra damage if I have to. The game is close, even though he's got his sneak attack on there. I've cut him off from 6 energy so he cannot drop his Moors. And that's important. Now he's got a big board, and that's not good when he's got cards who can sentence and add damage. He's putting the herd out there, but the game is not over yet. It's right in that mid stride, but I'm up 2 energy essentially, with those double Saboteurs. So it's just a matter of how do you turn it around? How do you take the advantage here? My guess here is I'm going to go Fortunas and Jubok, but nope, that's where I'm going. That's not a bad move. Stun him, stun both of those guys so he can't sentence and stack. Take out the 2. He's still up 6. Although with 8 energy, I'd have the option to play a one of many. And I think I might end up doing that. Or I might do the Inform Network. Nope, going one of many. It's been a couple days. We had to play this series out over the course of 3 days just because of our scheduling, which is why the replay feature is coming in so handy, and I didn't just record these games as we played along. So I think after playing this game, I played about another, played my daily games. Get out of here. Gonna eat some damage here from the Sentenced with that 7 direct damage. Yeah, that's gonna hurt. But we're still only 5 health away. We're not too far off now. That Jubok, yeah, I don't like having my tricks used against me, especially in a tricky Alpha Legion thing, but at the same time it's putting cards in his hand. Now, I won't surprise you. I know what that card is, because it got played against me. Jubok always seems to make that happen. And I think in this one, it's like, okay, let's kill 2 birds with 1 stone. And magically, I was able to put that card into use for myself. It's still very close, but with only 8 energy, I've got a turn before he drops a Cades. I'm going to be playing some either Transformers or versus 2 PCG with my buddy. And he's going to be able to wipe these guys out fairly easy thanks to that stealth, but they did their job. They helped me clear 2 very valuable targets. So I got to do what I got to do. Thankfully, schmankfully, I know I've got enough energy, and I've got to do some stunning action to close that health gap, because obviously it's just a matter of, Umbra Secundus, dropping somebody who can deal 6 damage, and now put the pressure on. Now I've got as many units on him, he's got 2 things stunned, and I'm drawing cards. And he's opting to keep his guy shadowed so he can heal, which is a smart move. He's got the Sentenced, so yeah, cannot blame him there. It's a very tight game, very close game. This was a good game. But you top deck sometimes what you need, and being able to stun all those guys. There was a couple options I had. You could play satellites. You could, you could copy the Numis squad. You could put down Hydra's heads and try to force the issue. But that Sentence damage, that's going to be 7. I mean, that would have been enough to really wrap it up. So being able to stun all of his units, that's brutal. And then he hid, but I've got Pale Spear. So I know I'm going to drop him to 1 health. And he can weaken my score all he wants. He might be thinking he can, stealth next turn if he needs to. But with that 1 health, that defensive satellites is going to wrap up the game. And now that I think about it, I might be thinking of a different game where they stole a card from me with Jubok. I was playing a game where somebody stole a score with Jubok, and they used score on me. And I took the 3 damage, and they stunned on my units, and then I just played the instrument on them and won. So that brought our series up to 1-1. And that meant that it was going to come down to my Fulgrim, who had to have a victory, versus his Corax, who had to have a victory. And now here's really where you get into the meta, as it were, of the Lodge Wars format. Now, again, I could have and I should have, for the purposes, made a meta deck with Fulgrim here. Deck slots. I cannot ever not say it. Deck slots. You need deck slots. But what I end up doing is I went into Fulgrim, and I I know I'm facing Corax. I know I'm facing Stealth. I just fought that deck yesterday. I know he's got his Shadow Walks to hide guys. I'm gonna load up on the Stealth kills. I doubled up on Informant Network. I hit up, I've only got one Skitarii Protector, but I put that in there. I have 2 Joker Companies, but they're costly, so I put 1 Joker Company, and then I did 2 double Rotaus. That was suggested to me just to kind of help give my early game some potential, and having those guys out on the board right off the get-go. So I really loaded it up, and in this instance, I mean, every warlord has got something that you know that they can do, so you can prepare against it. It's hard to prepare against perfection, and that's when I say perfection, I mean the mechanic. It's hard to really prepare against that. At the best, you can try to find a way to break the energy curve. You can throw out some things to mess with or counter the specific perfection abilities, such as the stun or the you can have sabotage for the guys who increase their stats. But really, it's hard to counter that. However, with Corax and the Raven Guard in particular, stealth is their thing. There's a lot of cards for stealth, as much as people cry and moan about it. Through the course of time, in 2 sets, they put out a lot of counters to stealth. Now, I feel like that was a pretty good opening hand. If I need to, I can drop the artillery strike. He's got the bikes. He's got the scimitar speeders. Drawn this guy, and I put one of those guys in there as a perfection, but also because of that drop pod. It's going to give me a time to have him, and in the event that you had an unbreakable focus, you could technically play and they have a better chance of surviving. So I just really meted up this matchup because it came down to the wire. I knew who I was facing. I knew what I had to have. Not including cards like that just wouldn't be a smart use of my. It just wouldn't be smart. Why would you deprive yourself of those tools? So I had what I had, and as we'll see how it worked out. Now, the artillery strikes, I had originally 2, and I went into 1. So this is my only artillery strike, but I'm playing it now. So I'm taking out that speeder without having to hit it with my face, and I'm taking him out. Staying a little bit ahead in the energy department. However, we're approaching that 6-7 energy where the Raven Guard can stealthily build up their board, and I've got 1-2 troops. It's looking hard. So what do? And I'm going to play that Rillinor. Now, the reason I did that, below the tactical brilliance, there's no perfection, there's no magical trigger here. It just came down to Rillinor's got shield. He's a beast. He's got the health. And next turn, on turn 6, I've got Agamenon. If he's smart, and I'm sure he was aware that I've got Agamenon, that's going to be beefy. He's got to deal with it, and he's dropping everything he can to deal with it. And he did so. And I can't blame him for doing that. If anything, I baited out, 2 cards out of his hand that could have come and played later down the road. It was a shame I didn't get to use Rillinor's ability, but he did what he did. He put pressure on the table, and I don't feel like that was an unfair exchange. And then I really start to crank it down here. So now I'm up 7, and he could, depending on what he's got in his hand, if he could stealth and do a sentence attack and drop these guys down. But as it is, he's just going to whittle it down. He's going to hopefully hope that I attack him with his face, and then he'll be able to stealth attack out of that. Now we're starting to see my anti-stealth stuff get into my hands. Skitarii Protector, and I will gladly get rid of that Moors this turn. Not take the extra damage on his Warlord, just to keep his board clear, keep his setup gone. I don't know why that's coming up. It doesn't usually come up that often, maybe because I'm not touching the screen. So we're starting to see that. We've got 2 jet bikes. We've got them low. We can do some hurt here. And now you'll note here, this is a total of 8, 12, 14 damage coming at him. I know he's going to be able to stealth my guys, but I've got that Informant Network in hand, so it won't matter. unless he's got defensive satellites and kills all my guys, he can stealth 1, and I've got him next turn, which is exactly what ends up happening here. He's building up his table for a counter strike, but it's not going to happen, and that's how this game wraps up. So in this instance, in this matchup, in the course of this series, having knowledge as far as exactly who you're facing on game 3 becomes a really big deal. If he had known, like for instance, if my matchup on game 3 hadn't been Fulgrim and it had been Alpharius, I'm sure he would have loaded up on the few anti-stun cards that he could, or cards that maybe don't rely on drawing cards so much, but on things to drop out quick and hit the board. I mean, there's a few different ways to play against Alpha Legion, but you have those tools, you include them. I knew I was going up against Stealth. If you're going up against Angron, then you pack a bunch of frontline in a game 3 matchup. Force him to run into that as much as he can, make it harder for him if he can. It just depends on obviously who your warlord is and what tools are available to you. So that was a series, Trader's End, that brought us into a 1 of for us and a 1 of for their side, and it left it down to 1 player, and our player finished that game up not too long ago, and he ended up winning. So we are moving on to round 6, and we are going in to face Prodigal Sons this next week, and the matchups have been put up just shortly, just a little bit ago, and I believe I'm paired up against Phaedros. So we'll have to get together and figure out how we're going to play and what we're going to be playing this week. Should be fun. It's been nice. It's been a good Lodge Wars tournament. We had a big turnout, and it's been good being able to share these games. I'm really hoping that they fix this replay feature soon for these later games, because I can't moan and complain about it enough, because it's so nice to be able to show those games off that have been out there for a while. And when you got an issue with that, that's no good. That's no bueno. So anyways, that's it. We're gonna go into week 6 Lodge Wars kicking off, I guess after midnight tonight. I'm gonna be keep doing some recruit level videos for, I've still got to do Sentenced, and then I'm going to be doing Siege and Terror, and I think that kind of covers all the mechanics, the advanced mechanics that are currently in the game. I've got a poll going out. If you haven't been on Discord, or you haven't voted yet, please, if you're on Discord, PM me your top 5 neutral cards, non-warlord, doesn't matter if they're troop or tactic, but your top 5 neutral cards. I'm making a poll. That'll be kind of interesting to see what everybody's choices were, and I've gotten quite a few people voting. Got some interesting results, got some anticipated and expected results, but there's a good range as far as what people view as what they value the most in terms of neutral cards and what they include in all their decks and why they include them in all their decks. So I'm going to be doing a video about that and kind of talking about that, and it'll be, I think, more helpful for newer players, but at the same time very interesting for other players to kind of see across the board, put a different perspective on things, cards that maybe you don't look at normally, take a second look at, or cards that you might dismiss after a certain point. They still hold value to some players or for some specific matchups. So as you saw here, I mean, Informant Network and Skitarii Protector definitely came in clutch, came in handy. So that's it for me. Thanks for viewing. This is round 5 of Lodge Wars Part 2. Electric Boogaloo has concluded. We're moving into Lodge Wars week 6, and I'll check back with you later. All right, until then, keep playing Legions, and I'll keep playing Lodge Wars. All right, bye.